No business agenda items. We do have a joint meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Housing Authority to commence at 3 p.m. One item, Director of Community Development, Affordable Home Ownership Project, which is located at 634 and 700 East Lomita Avenue, and utilizing housing home funds. That evening for the council meeting to start at 6 p.m., we have a number of consent items. Director of Public Works, Pacific Avenue and Burchette Street Wastewater Capacity and Street Improvement Project. Director of Public Works, this is regarding the Beeline Maintenance Facility Project. General Manager of Glendale Water and Power, this is rehabilitation of Glorieta Well Number 6 and Verdugo Wells A and B. General Manager of Glendale Water and Power regarding Unit Number 4 Boiler Water Wall Tubes Replacement Project. Police Chief, this is regarding the Wellness Solutions program that we have in place, and it's authorizing the Chief to enter into an agreement with them. Under under adoption of ordinances, we have an ordinance amending chapters 13.42 of the GMC, and this is relative to low impact development standards and Green Street standards. Under action items, we have 3 items. Director of Community Development, and this is regarding direction from City Council regarding initiation of a zoning code amendment for artificial turf. Director of Public Works, Doran Street and Broadway Brazil Safety and Access Project, Railroad Crossing Grade Separation Alternatives. And lastly, under action items, Director of Public Works, this is regarding the Central Library Renovation project. We have one item under hearings, and this is Director of Finance. This is the proposed city budget for 2015-2016 fiscal year, and that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Next item, please.
3B is a proclamation designating the month of May 2015 as Older Americans Month.
Thank you. Will the recipients please come forward, and I will read the proclamation.
Thank you. That's all. Okay.
So
go ahead.
Let me go first, and then I'll give you your chance. The proclamation is as follows. Whereas the population of the city of Glendale includes over 40,000 residents ages 60 and older, and whereas the city of Glendale is committed to helping all individuals live longer, healthier lives in the communities of their choice for as long as possible, and whereas we recognize the value of community engagement and service in helping older adults remain healthy and active while giving back to others, and whereas our community can provide opportunities to enrich the lives of individuals of all ages by promoting and engaging in activity, wellness, and social inclusion, encouraging and promoting pedestrian safety among Glendale's older citizens, ensuring community members of all ages benefit from the contributions and experience of older adults. Now, I hereby proclaim May 2015 to be Older Americans Month and urge every resident to take time this month to recognize older adults and the people who serve and support them as powerful and vital individuals who greatly contribute to the community. Mr. Carpeccia, would you provide that?
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and staff. My name is Irene Esayan. I'm the Program Coordinator for Senior Services with Community Services and Parks. I am here today to present you get it all wrong, Ms. Alston, who is going to accept the proclamation on behalf of all the adults. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Nayarian, council members, and citizens. I am Irma Olson, a Glendale senior, and I'm honored to accept the proclamation for Older American Month. Let's get into the act. As a team for 2015, this has been my lifelong philosophy. As an adult, I am in perfect position to make a big commitment to community service, and I do. I volunteer my time to our community centers. I help to raise my grandchildren. I attend civic events and functions, and I take care of my health needs. I appeal to my fellow Glendale citizens to get into the act and make a difference. Real prosperity is measured in the notion to giving back to society. older adults are in a perfect position to undertake opportunities for service. Join me now in celebrating 2015 by getting into the act. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would also like to invite Denise Miller from Adventist Medical Center's Live Well program to say a few words.
Aren't they wonderful? It's a pleasure and an honor every single day for those of us who work with older adults to be in their presence. We learn so much. This year, in honor of the 50th anniversary of the Older Americans Act, we are focusing on how older adults are taking charge of their health, getting engaged in their communities, and making a positive impact in the lives of others. Today, in your city that you see, we were at the Adult Recreation Center. Your 2 Glendale hospitals were there, a number of other providers, and we were providing diabetes prevention, stroke assessments, blood pressure, as well. It was a lively and vibrant room. All over the center, you could see people driving by, stopped in. It's a pleasure to be a healthcare provider at Glendale Adventist and to communicate with to collaborate with our Adult Rec Center to provide these services to these wonderful individuals.
One last thing, we'd like to invite all of you to our 90-plus birthday celebration, which will take place next Thursday, May 21st at the Adult Recreation Center from 10 to 2. Thank you so much. 10 to 1, but afterwards there's a little gathering, so we'll see. Hope to see you there. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming by.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say that I love their philosophy. That's a joke.
Next item, please.
I agree.
3C is a proclamation designating the month of May 2015 as National Bike Month.
Okay. The bike community, please come forward.
Showed up in first.
How are you? I have a proclamation for Bike Month. Whereas the month of May is National Bike Month and cities across the nation will be hosting events and promoting Bike to Work Day on May 14th, 2015. And whereas the Glendale Employee Rideshare Program has been promoting the bicycle as an alternative transportation mode for almost a quarter century to reduce the number of single occupancy vehicles, improve the air quality, and to promote good health. And whereas the City of Glendale has made an admirable commitment to enhancing the bicycle through our rideshare program, offering free bike rides on our Glendale B line, updating the bicycle transportation plan, and the installing of bicycle lockers and racks throughout the city. And whereas we are engaged with partners from other local agencies and advocacy groups to list the city as a pit stop location for the Los Angeles County Bike to Work Day and provide information and support to bicyclists who visit the pit stop. Now, therefore, I proclaim May 2015 to be Bike Month in Glendale. Mr. Sinatra.
All right. Yay. Thank you very much. My name is Erica Camp. I'm the director of Go Glendale. We're an organization here in Glendale that works with employers and large office buildings and now residential buildings to promote all different types of transportation. But I'm here also with members of Walk Bike Glendale, as well as the city's Department of Urban Design and Mobility. And we're here, thank you very much, we're here to accept the proclamation. And just to let you know that we're here to represent all of the residents and workers here in the city of Glendale who want safe, accessible places to ride their bike. And to tell you also that the need is growing. Between 2010 and 2013, which was the difference between our last two bike counts in the city, there was a 35% increase in the number of people who are biking. And as more and more people are living close to the downtown area, and as the city continues with building its bike infrastructure as part of its bike plan, I think we're going to see more and more of that. So thank you very much. And Let me introduce my partners here really quick. We have Martha Sensel and Natalie Winiarski from Walk by Glendale. And then we have Mike Nilsson and Rebecca Granite Johnson from the city of Glendale. And Justin, whose last name is Klein. and Alec Bartrasoff, also from Walk by Glendale. So I'm going to let them really quick tell you about some of the events that we have coming up, including Bike to Work Day this Thursday.
Good evening. I'm Natalie with Walk by Glendale, and we will be having Bike to Work Day on Thursday, May 14th, and we do have a flyer that is circulating around. There we are. And this indicates all the different, we've got 3 pit stop locations located throughout the city of Glendale. We've got one at Sonora and Flower, one in front of City Hall, and one at 400 North Brand. And we invite you all to come by, stop by, say hello, and join in on the refreshments and get a little fresh air going to work in the morning. And hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Okay. So I also want to announce another event we have coming up, which is technically not in Bike Month this year, but it is just after on June 7th. It's our 3rd annual Jewel City Ride, which will be headquartered at Verdugo Park once again. We have 3 rides planned. One is a very challenging hilly ride that we call the Gear Grinder. And the second is a moderate 25-mile ride. And it's pretty moderate, rolling hills and flat, going all around Glendale. And then we have a family ride that's in the Verdugo Woodlands, just up above the park, which is up to 7 miles, but it could only be 3 if you only want to do 3. And we have a number of things going on at the park as well. I think there's going to be a fire engine and an obstacle course and some other family-friendly events. So we hope that you all will come out and join us for that. And this is being sponsored mainly by Rotary, and we are their partners. Walk by Glendale is partnering with Rotary for this event, and we have a number of sponsors. And our beneficiaries for this event, we have 3 every year, and they're YWCA, the ARC Family Center, and the Police Activity League this year. Thank you.
Here you go. And this is also not in the National Bike Month. We're still working on that Ciclovia concept.
Ciclovia?
The bicycle festival, Mero, whatever we want to call it. Going to have that happen, right? And hooray for Glendale Rotary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Alec. Thank you. And while everyone is still here, all the rides on Metrolink are free this week if you bring your bike with you. Next item, please.
Next item is a proclamation designating the week of May 17th to 23rd, 2015 as National Public Works Week.
Thank you, Public Works staff, supporters. Let me read my proclamation. Whereas public works projects and services are critical to the growth and quality of life in the city of Glendale and are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives. Through the efforts of our Public Works Department, Glendale remains a safe and comfortable community in which to reside. And whereas the support of informed citizens is vital to the efficient maintenance and operation of the city's infrastructure, including operations such as maintenance services, fleet management, engineering, facilities management, traffic and transportation, and integrated waste management. And whereas the employees of the Public Works Department are committed to providing daily infrastructure services in a quality manner. And whereas a well-planned, designed, and maintained municipal infrastructure is vitally dependent upon a team of people dedicated to professional excellence, customer satisfaction, and who strive to accomplish their everyday tasks efficiently effectively and with accountability to the community they serve. I, Ara Najarian, proclaim May 17th through the 23rd, 2015 as National Public Works Week and call upon all citizens and civic organizations in the City of Glendale to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing for our local infrastructure and to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to the betterment of our residents' health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Ms. Friedman, if you'll do the honors.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. On behalf of Public Works, the Director and the employees of our Public Works Department, we are happy to receive this proclamation. With me, I have Cevada, who will be from our Public Works Fleet Services Department. He was the recipient for the 2013-2014 Outstanding Department Employee of the Year, and he will be receiving our proclamation. Also with our team is Yvonne Guerra from Engineering, Al Ramirez from Facilities, Isidoro Balanzar from Integrated Waste, Julio Largaspada from our Street Maintenance Department, and we have some of our management here from our facilities management and our fleet department. These are just an example and a small representation of our hardworking employees for the Public Works Department, the proud men and women who serve the Glendale community. With that, I want to invite you to help us celebrate this week. And with you, you have some flyers in front of you. This year, we will be having the 26th annual pancake breakfast for our Public Works employees, and we will be there from 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., and we hope to see you there.
Thank you very much. Ms. Friedman.
I'll just congratulate all of you and to say that we have a lot of great departments in our city, but honestly, the department that over the years that I've been here has gotten the most unsolicited compliments from our residents is Public Works. We get emails and calls all the time about what a great job you do out in the community. So I want to thank you. And congratulations particularly for being Employee of the Year. Thank you very much. Thanks.
So the pancake breakfast is a great event for those willing to wake up at the crack of dawn, 6 a.m. It's on Thursday, May 21st. It is always a great time to thank the members of our Public Works Department personally as you sit down and have pancakes. Doesn't the city manager flip the flapjacks that day?
Whenever they allow me the honor, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, next item, please.
Next item on the agenda is the consent items. The following are routine and may be acted upon by one motion. A member of council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before a motion is proposed.
Does anyone want to pull an item off the consent? And if not, then will someone move the consent calendar?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Council members Devine?
Yes.
Friedman? Yes. Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Next item.
Next item is City Council and staff comments.
Mr. Garpetian.
Okay, I went to a few events that I wanted to mention because they were really nice community events. On May 7th, Burbank Glendale Fire Department's class of 2015 Firefighter Recruit Academy. I attended that event. It was a packed house. I congratulate everybody. Mr. Ochoa and I were sitting almost on one chair. There was no room. Yes, on on the same night, I attended Wilson Middle School's music presentation. It was a great event. Friday night, Father's Follies of Vertigo Woodlands at Glendale High School. I don't know how many of you attended, but it was another great event. Saturday was Fire Service Day. Pancakes were being flipped, and that was another event. And also the Jaws of Life came to live, and we had a good video of that. Fiesta Charity Show and Spectacular. I didn't get a chance to stay long, but it was packed as well. And Mother's Day event at Anush Restaurant by Shaz's cultural organization. It was a great event as well. So I just want to mention those community events that we attend, and they were all worthy and all well done. Also, the flyers that was made by Father Follies, I mean, I don't know if you've seen these or not, but these are really done in a professional manner. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman.
They were great events. I won't go over them again. Last week I had the pleasure to attend the conference for the Southern California Association of Governments, which is, I believe it represents 5 counties, elected officials in 5 counties. There were over 1,000 people at this conference. It was a one-day conference. Elected officials ranging from, I think, Santa Barbara, I don't think Santa Barbara, but it's Ventura County, Riverside, Imperial, San Diego, and Los Angeles County. So a wide range of elected officials, and out of all of those many cities in this huge service area, our city of Glendale received one of 3 top awards that they gave, and we received the Sustainability Award for our Greener Glendale Plan, which was developed by our planning department, of course, in conjunction with the City Council's priorities. And it's a huge honor. We beat out many cities, including Los Angeles, and all of the cities in the region, and we were given this great honor. And I want to congratulate our planning department and our public works and utility, everybody, for getting together and making the Greener Glendale Plan a part of the fabric of our city. And this is a plan that makes sustainability be a part of pretty much everything that the city does, planning and all other aspects of the city, the way that we run our utility, everything else. So Glendale is serious about sustainability, and now every city in 5 counties knows it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll make one comment. Last weekend, I was actually in Washington, D.C. for Armenian Genocide Centennial commemorative events, but I ran into our former mayor, former council member, and current treasurer, Rafi Manoukian, who was one of the individuals who biked from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., not the whole distance, but several sections of it. And on the last day, as he was traveling on the Appalachians, something happened. He fell off the bike, and he seriously injured his shoulder, and his face was pretty banged up too. But he looked better today. But that's about it. I wish him all the best and speedy recovery. He's going to need a lot of therapy on his shoulder, though.
Gee whiz.
Surgery too.
You, Ms. Devine?
Yes. Gee, I hope that wasn't in West Virginia in the Appalachians.
It was.
It was? Okay, that's my home state. That's why I'm asking. I'm in trouble. Send me the bill. Yes. I want to congratulate GTV6. They often don't get recognized formally, but as I understand it, they won a silver award of distinction for the Look to Live campaign video, and I am especially proud of that, and I think we all should be, because that is part of our pedestrian safety program, and it's given to projects which excel or exceed industry standards and quality of achievement. So congratulations to our GTV6 staff. Good work.
Thank you. I just had a great time being mayor all week, so that's all I have to say, aside from attending many of the events my colleagues were at. Are there any staff comments? Okay, let's move on to the next item.
Next item, item 6, is community event announcements, 3 minutes.
Do have a card from Elise Kalfayan, followed by Relinda Biesmeyer.
Hello, and good evening, Mayor Najarian and City Council and City staff and viewers. I'm Elise Kalfayan. I'm the president of the Friends of the Glendale Public Library, here to let viewers know that our annual full membership meeting is taking place tomorrow, Wednesday, May 13 at 6:30 p.m. in the Glendale Central Library Auditorium. The meeting agenda includes a brief review of our fundraising and membership programs, the election of directors for the 2015 to 2017 term, and a look ahead at changes to come as the Central Library renovations begin. We anticipate reconfiguring our book sale operations and our on-site publicity and donor wall as well in our bookstore space. I invite everybody in the community to join the Friends and join our advocacy and support for our community library system as a vital civic resource. So please come tomorrow, Wednesday, May 13th, 6:30 p.m. to the Glendale Central Library Auditorium to the Friends of the Library's annual membership meeting. And please stay after that because at 7 p.m. we have noted author and investigative journalist Leon Bing joining us to talk about her books. Ms. Bing was a famous fashion model for avant-garde designer Rudy Gernrich, and she's an award-winning journalist who wrote about the gangs the Bloods and the Crips in her book Do or Die. She's also published other investigative works and an autobiography, and this will be a fascinating program. We hope everyone can join us at the library. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Biesmeyer?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Rolinda Biesmeyer with the Glendale Youth Orchestra, and just trying to invite the community and all of you to come to our last concert of the season. This is our 26th season. Our concert is Sunday, May 17th at 7 o'clock in the evening. I encourage parking at the Orange Street Garage, and we have a new way of selling our tickets this year using promo codes and for discounts on the tickets. And so it's GYO 3700. And so I'm just inviting the community and all of you to please attend our concert. The Glendale Youth Orchestra is one of the finest youth orchestras in the community. Our 27th season starts in November, and so you should be seeing me then. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. I have no other cards for this portion of public comment, so we will move on to the next item, please.
Next item is adoption of ordinances. At 7A is an ordinance adding Chapter 9.14 relating to solicitation and deleting Section 5.08.500 and 5.08510 and Chapters 5.40, 5.52, and 5.72 the Glendale Municipal Code 1995 relating to peddlers and solicitors. This was offered on March 5th by Councilmember Friedman. 7A1 is a resolution amending comprehensive citywide fee resolution regarding administrative citation fine amounts for commercial and charitable solicitation and amending the existing comprehensive citywide fee schedule for fiscal year 2014-15 to add violations subject to fines and processing fees related to commercial and charitable solicitation.
Thank you. Does staff have anything to add to our report from last week?
Mr. Mayor, the only item, the 7A1, the resolution is new. It's just incorporating these particular violations into our administrative citation policy and the fine. So they were not set because this ordinance is new. So we're asking you to adopt this as well separately from the ordinance so that violations of this ordinance will also be subject to our administrative citation process.
Okay, and we need to take them separately.
Correct.
Presume. Okay, so we have 7A, the ordinance, and 7A1, the resolution. Are there any questions from council? Otherwise, a motion would be in order.
The item.
Second.
So let's specify. We have to take them one at a time. Let's say that was 7A.
7A.
7A first and seconded. Roll call, please.
Council members Devine?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. And how about 7A1? Is there a motion for that?
I'll move that item.
Is there a second? Roll call, please.
Council members Devine?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. Thank you. Next item.
Item 8. 8A is Police Chief and Chief Information Officer regarding electronic traffic citation and collision reporting system. 8A1 is a resolution dispensing with competitive bidding and authorizing to execute an agreement with Crossroads, Inc. in an amount of $7,800. 8A2 is a motion authorizing to execute agreements with MSA Systems, Inc. in an amount of $66,185 and Tiburon, Inc. in an amount up to $14,714, plus 10% contingency of $8,869.90 for a total cost up to $97,568.90. 3 is a resolution appropriating $97,568.90.
Okay, Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. We spent a good chunk of this afternoon talking about using technology to leverage staff resources, and I think what you'll find here is a pretty neat way that we can utilize some technology to cut down on the amount of time that our officers and personnel spend on traffic citations. Not to cut into the gee whiz element of the handheld device that the chief has, I'll let him tell you about it.
Thank you, Mr.
Chief.
Ochoa. Yeah, so one of the things is when I came into the organization, started doing an audit of looking for ways that we could improve, one of the things I was made aware of very quickly was that our officers were having to do the manual data entry of any citation they would issue. So if they issued a citation to a violator at the end of their shift or sometime during their shift, they would have to come off of the street, go in, and they would actually manually enter that data into the record system. Most recently, we actually hired a contract employee to do that for us to free those officers up. But I had previously used a technology that would automate this system for us. And so we went out in search of a system that would integrate with our current CAD and RMS system, our records management system. And the device we have here tonight is exactly that. It's a handheld device that the officers will now carry. There'll be a wireless printer in the police cars or on the police motorcycle. When they stop a violator, they'll swipe the license through. It will populate all the fields. It will, when they enter the vehicle license plate number, it will extract that information from the DMV. They can have menus to pull down to issue citations or violations. It has a camera so they can take a picture of the violator or the vehicle to document its conditions. And then when they get back to the station, when they dock the system, it uploads all the information into the system and also now will transmit this data to the court system, preventing us from having to print out volumes of citations, make copies of them, and literally walk them across the street to the courthouse. It's estimated that we will save a full-time staff member by the introduction of this technology into the department. And we're just very happy to say that this is one of the things that we're taking as a bold step to just try to automate more of our systems, create a lot more efficiencies in the police department, and give our officers technology that they can really use out there that will be a benefit, as well as allow us to capture information and data that if later on we're called to defend the citation, this will be a way that we can definitely do that in a much more efficient manner.
Excellent.
And the cost of this, Chief?
We're asking for $97,000 total. The most expensive is the device, plus we need the software, and we have to get other technical staff members to help integrate this into the new system. So for under $100,000, the return on investment will be in just over a year. We'll have our money back for the savings that we will receive from not having to have staff time to do this, as well as save a lot of time because, as you can imagine, not everybody prints at the exact same quality. So a lot of times we're having to do corrections on letters. All that will be replaced by this device, and we won't have to do any of that anymore.
And is there a hard copy, a printed copy that goes to the violator?
Correct. So when they print out the citation in the car, the violator will actually sign on this device. That their electronic signature will be printed out on a copy for them, and one copy will come back that we'll maintain a paper copy, but then all the data will be uploaded automatically into the system.
And how many devices $100,000 will buy for us?
Currently, we're going to purchase 20 of these devices to start. And after that, we may add additional devices down the road.
Okay, great.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Sinani.
Chief, why are we going with this particular vendor? Why are we dispensing with the competitive bidding process?
We are kind of tied to who will integrate with our current records management system, and this company, Crossroads, is the only company that will integrate with them. I had the same problem at my previous agency. We used a different software vendor, and I was restricted to only a certain company that would integrate with that. Crossroads, we currently have contracts with now also. So if you're involved in a traffic accident or you're an insurance company, you can actually order your traffic report online now, and it can be sent to you. And this Crossroads is the same company that does that. The officers will also be able to do simple police reports on these devices now. They'll actually be able to take property damage only traffic accidents on that. And again, it all integrates with the current system that we have. So Crossroads was the only vendor that we can use to integrate and use with the current systems that we have now.
So they've kind of cornered the market?
Well, what's happened is a lot of the companies, they kind of pick and choose. We use a company called Tiburon. So Tiburon is going to only integrate with Crossroads. A previous agency used another company. They had another vendor. So they kind of picked their markets of who they're going to invest their R&D money into to develop the software that's going to integrate with the system. It would be kind of cost prohibitive for this company to try to make one that worked with all the different vendors out there. So they just pick one that they think they're going to have a good customer base from, and that's where they invested all their research into to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, or would someone like to make a series of motions? They all could be done together.
I'll move the item.
So Ms. Devine moving 8A, 1, 2, and 3. Seconded by Mr. Garpetian. A roll call, please.
Council members Devine?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief and Mr. Ganley. Next item.
At 8B is Director of Community Development regarding operation of Glendale Beeline. B1 is a motion authorizing to negotiate and enter into an agreement with MV Transportation, Inc. in an amount up to $43,960,278 for an initial 6-year period with 2 1-year extension options.
Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. MV is our current operator of the Beeline fixed route transit system. We last bid out this contract in 2008 when they won the contract. We have since bid out the contract again, and MV was the only operator that bid on this particular contract.
Why?
Because in general, the requirement is that the provider have a facility, a yard or storage facility in the nearby vicinity, because if you're driving deadheading buses to Pacoima, for example, because that's where you keep them, then you're losing too much time, too much revenue hours. So you need something in the general vicinity, not necessarily within the city limits, but in the immediately surrounding vicinity. We do not have anything today that would meet those standards for a provider. You heard earlier today, and you'll hear again next week, where the actual design build component gets underway, where City of Glendale is moving forward with its own facility. And so when this contract, if you approve it, expires at the end of 6 years with a couple of 2 1-year options, which may or may not be exercised at the council's discretion. But at the end of that term, you will bid out this contract again, and at that point, whoever you bid it out to, the market would be allowed to use our facility, which should promise, and it's nothing against the folks at MV, but it should promise the opportunity to get a number of different providers for this particular contract. Now, with respect to the procurement, this is a 6-year term, as you saw in the staff report. There is a reduction in the revenue or the cost hour in the first year. The base service cost hour of 1.4%, which is good, of course, because our costs are going down. It does tick up by 1.8% in year 2, so if those effectively cancel one another out, you won't see a meaningful increase in the price of this contract until year 3, fiscal year 2018, where it goes up 3.5%. Then in year 4 is 2.5, 2, and then 2.7. So all of the increases that you see across the initial term of the deal really are rather pedestrian. No pun intended, but the idea that they are closely mirroring likely whatever the price of fuel or the price of just overhead is going to be, but it does keep consistent with the market. Now, we did want to find out from other agencies what they saw in recent procurements, and what you see from MV is in alignment with what the market is yielding.
So, you know what, you just almost preempted my question. In these situations, and it seems to me like we keep seeing an extension of a contract, or, well, it's sort of, this vendor has a monopoly on this geographic location or in this particular technology. And we're seeing less and less of open bidding processes for contracts, which is troublesome. Now, I'm not putting that on you. I'm not saying you have something to do with it, but just in a vacuum, it's not a good thing. So if I understand you correctly, despite the fact that this is the only entity that's willing to bid on this, it's a huge contract, you do still compare it to, you got to get a good sense of whether this is a good deal or not, right? At least a fair deal.
We've gone out to look at neighboring agencies that are not neighboring necessarily, but agencies in the region that have done recent procurements, and find that we are generally in the same ballpark as them. Pasadena did see a more significant reduction in their pricing, but that's because they replaced their entire, I believe they replaced almost their entire fleet with brand new vehicles, so their maintenance costs are going to be lower because they're brand new. We are getting new vehicles, and I think you'll see some of that relief in the pricing as those vehicles are delivered translate here. But you're absolutely right, sir. To the extent that we see not a whole lot of people wanting to bid on these contracts, yet we still have to comply with federal bidding requirements that make sure that we do according to Hoyle bid requirement that satisfies the rather robust requirements of the federal government. But that still doesn't necessarily mean that somebody else that cannot comply with the practical need to have a facility in the nearby vicinity, if they don't have that facility, automatically their cost is going to be higher. And if my cost is automatically going to be higher, then do I spend 100 hours to prepare a bid that probably is not going to be successful anyway? And I think that's what you see coming through here. Again, with all credit to the folks at MV, I think they've done a good job in putting together a package, but until we do our own facility, we probably will see more of the same of this, which is why we're bringing the facility forward next meeting.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Ms. Devine.
And let me also, I'm sorry, ma'am, if I can bring up Alan Loomis, our Deputy Director for Mobility, and our Transit Manager, Catherine Engel, in case you have specific questions about the procurement or the program.
I just, I read the report, and Dave Smith, who's Director of Business Development for First Transit, suggested, and I think it's a good suggestion. I'm wondering why don't we just do a 4-year contract, get our facility built, and then we'll have competitive bidding for this project instead of just going ahead and giving them a 6-year contract or 4 years with an extension. And my second, I don't know if you want to tackle that one first, or my second question is about the fiscal. It says that the funding for the first year of the agreement has been requested through the annual budget. What happens after that? Where do the funds come from after that first year?
It would be coming from the same source, but we'd be seeking appropriation from you on an annual basis. So on the first point, the facility that Mr. Golanian is going to bring to you, or at least the concept that he's going to be bringing to you next week, it'll probably take us 18 months to design and bid out, about another 2 to 3 years to construct and then shake out to make sure that we've worked out any kinks. So you're going to be close to 4.5 to 5 years there, and wanting at least some degree of flexibility to go from soup to nuts on that facility. 6 years seems to be the number. Could you do 4 years plus a 1-year extension? You could, but then if something, God forbid, did go wrong with the construction of that facility and our contract is winding down, the contractor would have us a little bit at a disadvantage because they would have the ability to walk away because the deal's over.
But isn't the extension built into the contract?
The extension ours or theirs?
We have the option. We have the option for 2 1-year extensions. Yes. To the extent that we are able to go through the good process of bidding it out to see if we can actually reduce costs, which we have by virtue of this procurement, we've saved some money in the first year. And if it's a 1.4% reduction in the first year or 1.8 increase in the second year, I think the bidding process has served its purpose of at least putting the fear of losing a contract by putting it out to bid. We actually see not a price increase or even a flat line, but an actual reduction. So could we extend? I guess it would be incumbent on the provider to say, yeah, I don't have to compete for the contract, but I'm going to give you a reduction anyway. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't, but at least in the context of a procurement, a competitive procurement, they didn't know that nobody was going to bid when we put the contract out on the street. They came in with a service hour reduction.
To Mr. Ochoa's point, and to yours also, Ms. Devine, the initial proposal was 6-year plus 2, and staff said, well, the facility's probably going to be done right around that time, so let's not go too far out. Let's do 6 + 1 + 1. And I think that is, to Mr. Sinanian's comments, that is really, it's not really a level playing field because MV has invested. In fact, for those with a historical bent, I was on the original RFP review committee back in 1997. If I'm not mistaken, I was on the Transportation and Parking Commission. And it was a very rigorous process. MV did come out ahead, and so they've been located in Glendale for close to 20 years running the Beeline, and they have made their capital investment in that maintenance facility, which gives them just a huge advantage over the others. And
Sure.
First Transit and Southland Transit, maybe another one or two, realized that they couldn't compete if they had to purchase a facility or rent a large facility.
Well, I like them too because they're women-owned.
Yes, they are women, and I think a minority as well. So they've done a good job.
Yeah.
They've done a good job, and for those concerned with labor, I think they use Teamsters labor, if I'm not mistaken. So everything's above board, and their operational cost is much less than the MTA hourly rate, which is upwards of $130 an hour. So this is about $70. And I think it's a good service. Folks are starting to use it more, and I wish we could get more buses and expand the system. The problem is that our fare box recovery, what are we, Catherine, 30%, 35%? 18%. So that means that we only recover 18 cents on every dollar that we spend on that transportation. So it's heavily subsidized by the city.
If I may, one more question,
Yes,
Mr. Mayor. And this initially came from Councilmember Devine. How viable is electric engine bus technology, and are we tying ourselves into old technology that may put us behind over the next 6 years?
I'd have to defer to the subject matter expert. I couldn't tell you.
I'm not saying that I'm the expert, but the MTA has recently purchased 5 buses, which are completely electric, made by a Chinese company up in Lancaster. So they're going to be going through a testing phase. The real issue on that is the route, the number of miles they could put into service. And as technology improves, it will become more and more feasible. At one point last year, they said they would give us a loaner as a demonstration project. There's more than just the bus, though. You need the mechanics and the other support to make it happen. But there are other technologies as well as the hydrogen cell technology. But let me give it back to
Most of
our
buses
official
are on
expert.
CNG, right?
All our buses are CNG.
Yeah, correct. Our entire fleet's CNG.
Okay.
Which brings us to next week when we're discussing the allocation for that depot, the bus depot thing that we're going to, the facility. We should make sure that we're forward thinking and it's designed in a way where it can quickly,
For the future.
quickly move towards whatever the prevalent technologies, electricity or hydrogen or whatever.
So one question, this $43 million is for 6 years, right?
Yes, sir. The not to exceed number, yes.
Sorry?
Yes.
For 6 years. And the option of 1+1 is our option to exercise, or is their option to exercise?
I believe it's our option, but it has to be accepted. Yes.
Accepted. Okay.
Okay. Is someone interested in making a motion? I'm sorry, we have a hold the boat. We hold the bus. We have a speaker, Mike Mohill.
Good evening, Mayor Najarian. Congratulations, Councilwoman Devine and Garpathian, for your winning in the April election. There's a lot of people in the city who would like to expand the Beeline service. I hear it all the time. Several years back, we cut it back. City said, we don't have the money. And the question is, where has all the money gone? Well, let me give you a little bit of ancient history where all the money is gone. In 1997, about 33% of the budget was for salaries and pensions of our fire and policemen. Today it's 80% and still growing. That's where the money is going, $1.4 billion unfunded pensions. If we were to cut back, I respect my fire and policemen, but they are 90% of their last year's salary is their pension for life. And the little old ladies can't get a bus because it doesn't come on time. They only have 1 or 2 buses, maybe 5 in Glen Oaks Canyon. It doesn't get expanded into Chevy Chase Canyon and Montrose and South Glendale. This service should be expanded just like you've expanded the payroll for our city employees. Why don't you expand the bus services for the most needed? The most needed. They don't have a spokesperson to come here every week and speak to you, to give you campaign money. But our city unions do. And that's why we all sit here and protect them. The Beeline service needs to be expanded and not reduced. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohill. I have no other cards from the public. Would someone like to move the item? So we're at 8B1.
I'll move the item, 8B1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Council members Devine,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Snanian,
Yes.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Next item, please.
8C is General Manager of Glendale Water and Power and Director of Public Works regarding stormwater and urban runoff pollution prevention control. C1 is an ordinance for introduction. C2 is a resolution adopting County of Los Angeles Department of Public Works Low Impact Development Standards Manual as the City of Glendale Low Impact Development Standards Manual. And 3 is a resolution adopting Green Streets Manual.
Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. You got a little bit of this last week with the Green Streets demonstration project. We referenced LID, Low Impact Development, that is coming forth as a function of the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, which is an outcropping of the Clean Water Act. We'll have Maurice Oitegere, our Environmental Program Administrator, give you the overview as to what to expect if you are to move forward with this ordinance. Maurice?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council members. My name is Maurice Oitegere, as Scott introduced me. So we have a short PowerPoint that will hopefully make us a little easier to understand. It already says we'll be up in just a second.
Here it's up on the TV.
So briefly, I could say that we're doing this in response to a new stormwater permit that the city obtained in 2012. And not just the city of Glendale, but there's 84 cities in the watershed of the LA River, actually in LA County. And we're all part of the same permit, including the LA County Flood Control District and the County of Los Angeles. So we all have the same kind of requirements. So we're not the only city doing this. All right, so what are we specifically requesting? There's 5 things. One is we want to amend section 1.20.010 of the Glendale Municipal Code. The second thing is we want to amend chapter 13.42 of the current municipal code, and that's our current stormwater ordinance. And then we want to add a new chapter. In addition to 13.42, we're going to create a new chapter, 13.43, in our municipal code, and that's also to meet this permit requirement. And then we want to adopt 2 resolutions. One is an LID manual, and another one is a Green Streets manual. Next slide, please. Thank you. So specifically 1.20.010, we want to basically make this stormwater ordinance enforceable. That's a requirement of our stormwater permit. So we want to add these provisions into the section D, and that would make these, if somebody violates these, it would be an infraction. So previously right now, actually, our current stormwater ordinance, if this is not adopted, If you read that, there's a few sections of that ordinance where some violations are misdemeanors. Oh, thank you. Actually, I need that. Oh, thank you, sir. Oh, okay. Oh, I could do it myself. That's what they're telling me. That's even better. Thank you. So,
obviously, Marisha's not with ISD.
Exactly. So the current ordinance, there's some sections there which are misdemeanors, and the only people that can enforce that is a police officer. So we want to have everything enforceable as an infraction. And per that section of our municipal code, the first offense would be a $100 fine. The second offense within 12 months would be a $200 fine. And the third offense within 12 months would be a $500 fine. And then beyond that would turn into a misdemeanor. Yes.
Could you give an example of one of those offenses?
Yes, so let's say somebody is illegally washing paint into the storm drain system. So the first offense would be an infraction. Whereas right now it would be a misdemeanor. We'd have to call the police to enforce that. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. So, okay, and specifically, what do we want to change in 13.42? That's our existing stormwater ordinance. We just basically, real simple, we're just removing outdated language that doesn't really it's not in sync with the new permit. So a lot of it is just taking out outdated language. We also, as an example, there's some technical changes. One of them is our exempt discharges. So the new permit has different exemptions that are allowed. For example, in the old permit, only emergency firefighting was allowed. Obviously, if it's an emergency, a building's on fire, that can go to the storm drain system. Under the new permit, also non-emergency firefighting training activities are also exempt. So just kind of truing it up to meet the new permit. Also, another example, in our current ordinance, if you're going to build, let's say, a 5-acre construction project, you're going to disturb 5 acres of soil, you have to apply to the state for a construction NPDES permit. The new permit that we have that the city obtained requires us to drop that threshold down to 1 acre. So that's another significant change. All right, then I mentioned that we want to add a new chapter, and this is chapter 13.43, and this is what we'll call our LID chapter. And what is LID? Basically, low impact development. So earlier we talked about sustainability. It's basically a concept related to sustainability. The simplest way to think of that is, let's say you're a bird. Try to imagine you're a bird flying over the LA basin 300 years ago. You would see very little concrete, very little impervious surfaces, and a lot of green grass, natural vegetation, and pervious surfaces, right? So pre-development, that's what we refer to as pre-development. Imagine a bird 300 years ago flying over the basin, a lot of this pervious area. So when it rained, a lot of that water would actually get infiltrated into the ground, and it would not run off as quickly as it does now with all the concrete. So low impact development is kind of a paradigm shift to the way we treated stormwater. If you look at all of our, LA River, all of our Verdugo Wash channels are all concrete lined. The reason for that was flooding. In the old days, we had a lot of flooding. So we had some engineers in the old days that were very, very efficient and did a great job. Believe it or not, Rubik can take kudos for his forefathers. They did a great job of engineering a storm drain system that really efficiently removes rainwater very fast and very efficiently out to the ocean. And now what we want to do is kind of just reverse that whole idea. And we want to slow that water down. We want to keep it on site. We want to infiltrate it, get it into the groundwater, and especially in this drought, it's a great idea because now the drought's, that's a big issue, have more local water reserves. But at the same time, the main push for our NPDES permit is not necessarily the drought, it's mainly to clean up stormwater because it reduces pollution. So just as these engineers did a great job of getting rid of water to the ocean very fast, very efficiently, unfortunately, the unintended consequence is it also does a great job of removing pollutants to the ocean very fast and very efficiently. So that's what LID is in kind of a nutshell. So the big shift for this new ordinance and our new permit is, in the old days, we had what's called SUSUMP, which is a standard urban stormwater mitigation plan. And basically, the first 3/4 inch of rainwater had to be treated before it can go to the street. So you can just run that through like a fossil filter and remove some oils. The new permit requires us to retain that water on site and infiltrate it. So that's a big change. And then the fourth thing I talked about was adopting, or the fifth thing was a Green Streets manual. And the new permit doesn't really say if the city, yes, go ahead.
If you collect the water on site and infiltrate it, do you clean it first, then infiltrate it, or how do you do that?
That's a good question. Depends. There's several different types of BMPs, or best management practices. So depending which one you select, if you're a developer, let's say you're going to select a grassy swale, and I'll show a picture of one. Right. It's basically just a little indentation with grass. You really don't need to clean up the water. But if you're going to select, let's say, a dry well, and a well where you're going to inject it straight to the groundwater, you do need to pre-treat that, because you could contaminate the groundwater.
So the infiltration, the earth serves as the media
as a filter, basically.
As the filter before it goes all the way to the groundwater. But if you were to go to the dry well, then it's a straight shot in, so you need to treat that.
So how about a gravel pit?
Gravel pit, depending, most gravel pits are pretty shallow. So like if it's a gravel pit for a parking lot, usually you want to pre-treat the oils and grease, so let's have some way of removing that. So minimal treatment, because again, you're not getting that close to the groundwater. You're going to be 40, 50 feet from the groundwater, so the soil, as Scott says, it does a great job of naturally treating that.
So what you do is, on 1 acre of land that we have, I don't know that many 1 acre lands in Glendale that can be developed.
Exactly.
If you have a 1 acre land, the lowest point of your land, you have this grassy area that you can collect all your water there and it infiltrates, and that's it.
That's it. You're done. Okay. Yes.
So I know some cities, I believe Santa Monica has required for a while that no water be able to leave sites.
Right.
For any size new development. So the state's requiring 1 acre, 3/4 inch rain, but we have the ability to require that new development retain all rainwater, or practically all rainwater on site.
Absolutely.
We don't need to stop at a 1/4 inch.
No.
And I don't think we should. I think we should pass our own standards that surpass that of the state. Other cities do it, and it's very important. Not so much for the water going to the sea, although that's part of it for the pollution, but certainly for drought.
Absolutely.
Resistance, I'd say, and for our aquifer, which we do draw water out of. So that would be my suggestion. And I don't think that we're talking stormwater permit. But are we talking the actual? Can we make that change now, or would that be something you'd have to bring back?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Friedman, the way the proposed ordinance is written is not being presented today. It's not with your suggestion, so we'll have to I don't know, I'll ask the city attorney, can we change it today or have to bring it back?
I'd have to defer to Doreen or Maurice. I'd imagine we'd have to make the change because we'd probably have to go through more than one section to make that change.
Why are we making that change? I mean, what is if the entire 80 cities are doing the same thing, why are we
She's right. Some cities are a little more stringent.
Yeah, I mean, you can be as stringent as you want.
The point is, this is a statewide regulation. Not all cities, not all areas are over aquifers. So if you're over an aquifer the way that we are, any water that you keep from going into your storm drains and out to the ocean will percolate down. If it's engineered correctly, will percolate down into the aquifer and replenish our aquifer so that later we can all take that water out and drink it as opposed to pumping it out to the ocean. The San Fernando Valley at one point was practically a floodplain.
Yes.
And one of the reasons that we're having this drought, as you indicated, or not the reason we're having the drought, but one of the reasons we're having water rationing and problems with our water resources is because of this over-engineering, and rather than engineering to keep water here, it was engineered to rush water out to the ocean. So we haven't retained water, we haven't recharged our aquifers as an area, we haven't put water into storage, and all the things that now we're rushing to do statewide. This is a simple way that will not cost the city anything. It's not very difficult engineering. Like you said, Mr. Garpetian, it's just putting a deeper gravel pit in. That's all they need to do. I mean, clearly, if it's a huge site or there's a lot of issues, we're not going to go and measure water runoff if there's 14 inches of rain over 2 days. That's not the idea. But it is to engineer them to capture as much of the water that comes from the sky on site and then percolate it back into the ground. And I can tell you as well, for people at home that are listening that have yards, if you dig up part of your yard and you do this yourself and put a gravel pit in and put planting on top of it, even turf, in the summer that water will evaporate back up and keep your yard much greener than if you didn't do that, if you didn't have that drainage on site. So I think it's something that we should do because it doesn't cost us anything. It doesn't cost much to engineer for the developers. And it's just the right thing to do. And other cities are doing it right now. And
I want to understand what the difference is, because if you have a big grassy area, that thing happens automatically, right?
Yeah, but
percolating, it happens automatically. And
right.
I don't see any area that the water comes back up again and keep your yard green.
No, but I mean, the idea is, let's say you're downtown and you're going to build a high-rise or a mixed-use loft, let's say, and that water from the roof and that impervious area, if you, let's say, instead of designing it for the 85th storm, which is about 3/4 of an inch of rainwater, you could design it for the first inch if you wanted to and infiltrate a little larger volume of water. That's what Councilmember Friedman's.
And I believe what some cities do, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think some cities that take this seriously, like Santa Monica, I'm told that you have to keep all the rainwater. It's not an inch. It's basically you've got to engineer these buildings so that instead of just pumping everything into the drains, it's going down below your building, however, 30 feet, 100 feet. I don't know, put a pipe down and just put it into the ground.
What kind of buildings are we talking about? Residential homes? Or are we talking about?
Well, the permit, there's categories of development that get captured. Not everything, the way this is written, the way our permit requires it. So I'll give you an example. If you want, I could read you the whole list. 1 acre sites, right? 1 acre sites that are existing, that you're going to add 10,000 square feet of impervious area, that's captured. An industrial park that's 10,000 square feet. A commercial mall, 10,000 square feet or more. Retail gas outlets, like a gas station, 5,000 square feet. Restaurants, 5,000 square feet or more. Parking lots that are 25 spaces or 5,000 square feet or more. Streets that are 10,000 square feet or more. We don't really have a lot of private, like in Santa Clarita where they're building a development, they have streets. And then also automotive service facilities, 5,000 square feet or more. So that's all that's captured with this requirement, the way this is written in our current permit.
And what I'm suggesting is it just be all new development. The state's doing they're doing the minimum, but we can certainly trump that, and I think we should. I think we have a responsibility to make sure that any development that happens, whether it's brand new or additions, that it be done responsibly when it comes to water resources. And this is a fairly simple but very powerful step in capturing water in our ground and in our aquifer.
I mean, let me just say I'm all for saving the environment, but I'm against doing this on the fly as I think we're doing right now.
No,
I mean, I need to get a complete understanding. What you're telling us is that there are standards that have been set. Some cities have exceeded them.
Right.
I need to know the full impact of, we're just talking about maybe a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch extra in depth.
Yes.
I need to know really what that,
no, that's a good point.
full impact is.
If I may, Mr.
I mean, it sounds... Yes.
Oh, if I may, Mr. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we have a requirement to get this ordinance in place and the policy in place by June 28th. So my recommendation would be to adopt ordinance, introduce this ordinance that we have tonight and adopt it. We already have some ideas that we're going to have to bring back anyway at a later time, but not much later. We could look at this issue, see exactly what Santa Monica did, how they did it, were there any other exemptions, and then we could bring that back for the council to have a subsequent discussion on it.
So just so I'm clear, this proposal for amendment is under the Green Streets Manual, or is this would be embedded in 13.42 and
13.43, the low impact development? Yes. Okay. So the other advantage of doing what Mr. Garcia's suggestion is this is kind of a big paradigm shift for our developers, because they're used to just treating the water and releasing it. So even though it's in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that expensive, or some people might argue differently. If you talk to some people in Santa Monica developers, they got some pretty negative things to say. But so the nice thing about doing it in this phased approach would be that, maybe for the first 12 months, all these developers that come through in Glendale and all the rest of the cities in LA County have to do this. And then later, if we want to ratchet that up, then it would be a little bit less painful, I think.
That's not my suggestion at all. My suggestion is go ahead and adopt this, but bring this back as soon as you can, doing the due diligence that you need to do to make sure we know what not just Santa Monica but other cities have done, what's feasible, how much, what's reasonable, and let's be aggressive about this. I'm not willing to wait a year. We're in a serious drought condition, and we have for too long in this state been trying to get water out of the ground and into the ocean as fast as we can, and that's what the paradigm shift that we really need.
Yeah, you could certainly, the council has the authority to change whatever they want, whenever they want, so she has a good point.
We'll certainly do that. We'll bring it back as soon as we can figure out what Santa Monica is.
Mr. Garbett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What was our position on all the developments that went through downtown? What kind of enforcement did we have on those?
We made them comply with the current rules at the time. The current.
What was the current rule?
It's what Maurice just
explained. The existing ordinance, the SUSM, the Standard Urban Stormwater Mitigation Plan, is kind of the current language. Was basically they didn't have to infiltrate. They could have treated it and released it. So some of them did put. There's some that did put dry wells in, but there's some that just treated it and released it. Under the old permit, that was allowable. Now you can't do that anymore. You have to infiltrate it.
So under the old permit, most of the developments that's going on, they pulled permits already.
Yes.
They don't have to comply with quarter of an inch, three-quarter of an inch, or 1 inch.
They have to only treat the water.
Treat the water
Yes.
and release it.
Yes.
They don't have to save it. They don't have to
Exactly.
Although it is-
let it in the ground. They don't have to do they don't have to infiltrate. They don't have to do anything. They just have to let it go.
Correct.
Although it is possible that some of the projects that got the lead incentive probably had to
No, I
capture that
understand
for part
they
of
had
their
the
incentive.
option of doing it.
Right.
It's not that they had to do it. They had an option to take advantage of the incentives. But
yes,
my problem is this. I think I want to save the environment. I want to do everything right, and I want to bring it back and take a look at it and see what the options are. I don't want to follow Santa Monica every time we want to do something or restrict our rules more. I want to make it fair, because we let all these developments go, 4,200 units, and all of a sudden a poor guy wants to build a room or 2 rooms in his backyard. He has to come up with all these new regulations. That's what I'm a little bit hesitant about. But otherwise, I'm all for saving the environment. So I would introduce the ordinance the way it is, the way it's written, and we can bring it back and talk about it and see what else we have to do.
Okay. Any other? I have just a few more slides with pictures that would kind of help give you an idea of what we're talking about here. So again, what we're talking about, we want post-development hydrology to mimic the pre-development hydrology from 300 years ago. So in the old days, you'd have a street, the water would run very quickly into the storm drain, out to the LA River, into the Long Beach Harbor, the Pacific Ocean. Now, when you have something like this, you put in some kind of planters, so the water from the street flows into the planters, where it's retained, has a chance to percolate in, and there's secondary advantages to that you have more shade, right, for the urban infrastructure. So there's been some studies in Las Vegas and Phoenix where when you have some streets like this, it can reduce the temperature of the pedestrians walking on the street 10 degrees, so it's pretty significant. So there's other benefits besides just stormwater, but that's what we're talking about, is basically trying to hold the water, retain it, and get it in the ground, and get it back into the subsurface aquifer, which again helps tremendously with the drought. So final slide, just kind of the LID approach, the low impact development approach to stormwater management. There's different things you can do, but again, the bioswale over here. What's this thing? Oh, thank you. I knew that. I was just testing you, Scott. So anyway, so on the left, the bioswale is basically like you were saying. It's just a little indented, area, and you just put grass. So the bioswale is kind of like almost a storm drain system. The water is flowing, but very slowly, and it does remove the sediments and the pollutants, gets into the ground. The grass also kind of treats it, right, as it gets into the root structure, and it does flow into the storm drain, but much slower. You also have like a bio cell. You can have a bioretention cell, which is the same concept, but it's more like a swimming pool. So the water just fills into the swimming pool, does not go into the storm drain. When it stops raining, it slowly percolates back into the groundwater. And then you have rain gardens. You have on the right there permeable parking or permeable concrete. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it kind of looks like almost like a Rice Krispie treat, and the water goes in slowly instead of just running off into the street. So all these are same concept. We're just trying to retain the stormwater, slow it down, get it in the ground, which is a very different thing that we've been doing for the last 200 years.
Maurice, are some of these approaches less expensive than others?
Absolutely.
So residents could choose a less expensive way to go.
Yeah, although we have a disadvantage here in Glendale that most of our lots are very small. Most of these developers, especially downtown, to make a development project really pencil out, you really got to develop almost property line to property line. It's very different than if you're developing, let's say, in Lancaster or Palmdale maybe, where land's a little bit cheaper. You could put in a little bit of your parcel, like grassy swales. So for some of these developments, it's kind of tough to have like a large grassy swale or these large vegetated areas. But if you have a parking lot, for instance, and that's absolutely, you can have permeable concrete, or as part of your parking lot, you can have a swale.
I'm mostly concerned with the residents, not so much
the private
large
homeowners.
developments. Homeowners,
Absolutely.
yes, I'm sorry.
It can be very inexpensive. I mean, I've seen a landscape designer that I know very well. It does this frequently with low-budget projects as part of just reducing taking lawn out. And instead of just planting right away, they'll dig out and they'll put just gravel in and then put planting on top of it. And just that will make the water percolate down instead of running off of things that are harder materials
Absolutely.
on top. So it's pretty easy and inexpensive too. And rain barrels too. You can put underground. I don't remember what they're called. They're not rain barrels, but they're underground water cistern retention. And the water it's like you can have a French drain that sort of will percolate down into that. And then again, during the summer when it's hot, it'll start to evaporate out and it'll water your yard from below. So there's all kinds of things that
you
can
have
be
to
done.
grade your site to direct the water in that one area. It's not that simple that you put one well and put gravel in there and it just percolates that way. You have to grade your site to make that slope to direct all the water
Yes.
in one
Yeah.
one area.
Yes.
It's not very simple. Again, I'm not against it, but I don't want to put all the burden on the average Joe's small guys in this town. That's all. Otherwise, I'm all for the saving the environment and saving water because God knows we need it.
I mean, is this the type of thing that you'd need a landscape architect to design for you? and
If it's
to
like a
install?
private homeowner, like they're saying, you could actually go out in your backyard, dig a little trench, and get that grass to, instead of flowing over the sidewalk, you can make a little retention basin. So if it's something like that, absolutely not. If you're going to build, like, let's say, a commercial, loft in the downtown area, these are definitely a little bit more complicated things you need to do, definitely.
My experience overall is that blanket ordinances don't work. If you have one ordinance for the entire city, it's gonna create issues somewhere down the road. So I think that's what we had with our hillside developments and everything else. So that one ordinance cannot serve the entire city because the topography of the city is different parts of the city. So
You raise a good point because there are some, we're pretty fortunate in Glendale where we have a lot of sandy soil, but there's some cities in the LA region that have a lot of clay, and this infiltration, it's not going to work. So then you have to get into expensive, you have to build a tank and hold the water on site.
Exactly.
So it could turn. But most of these developments in our area, especially downtown, we're very fortunate. We have very, very fast percolation rates. We have very sandy soil and very little contamination. Another issue is if you're going to build, let's say, on top of an old gas station and there's some soil contamination, you definitely do not want to infiltrate that water because you're going to cause pollution. So
that's exactly my point because like in Verdugo Woodlands, it's a sandy soil. The liquefaction factor is really high. But if you go to La Crescenta, you can't even dig for a pool, for example, because it's all rocky. It's very solid granite. So that thing will not. That's why I'm saying that there has to be an ordinance that will serve different parts of the city, not one blanket ordinance. But
Okay, let me go to the city attorney and ask for his suggestion again. Obviously, there's some further discussion and tweaking on the extent that we want to.
Right. What I'm hearing and what I think is the approach that we should take is that this ordinance should be introduced along with the two policy manuals, and then right immediately after that, we'll just start looking at what Santa Monica and some of the other cities have done in terms of going down one edge and that sort of thing, and bring that back to you as soon as possible.
And I'm told they don't like to have Santa Monica mentioned, so we'll
Scared.
stop talking
I get
about
scared
that.
when you say Santa Monica.
We'll look at what other cities have done. May or may not include a certain city by the ocean.
And even for, beyond that, your engineers, you've got a lot of people in your department who clearly understand these issues. You don't have to be limited by what other cities have done. You can also think about what's things that we can do to really tackle this head on and really be a leader in some of these issues.
Okay.
So the ordinance
Okay,
will be introduced
then.
by Mr. Garpetian.
Mr. Garpetian, will you introduce the ordinance?
I already did.
You did. Okay, so we have resolutions at 8C2 and 8C3. Someone move those.
Oh, I'll move them.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Council members Devine?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. Next item, please. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Morris.
For 9 under hearings, 9A is City Attorney, Director of Community Development, and Police Chief regarding urgency ordinance to extend moratorium on massage establishment. 9A1 is motion to issue and accept report. 9A2 is an urgency ordinance for introduction and extending a moratorium on new massage establishments for a period of 10 months and 15 days. And 9A3 is an ordinance for introduction amending section 5.64.010 and 5.64.160 of the Glendale Municipal Code 1995 relating to massage establishments.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
if I may, so the item before you, the council adopted an ordinance on April 7th. It's already been 45 days, or will be 45 days next week, so we need to, if the council wants to extend the moratorium while we continue to look at our regulations, it would need to introduce it tonight as well as, and then adopt it next week. So the ordinance would extend the current moratorium for 10 months and 15 days to make it a full 1 year moratorium, in which time our staff, police department staff, and planning staff will continue to look at the regulations that we can implement now that AB 1147 has taken the shackles off us somewhat and allowed us to reintroduce our land use authority into this area once again. The one thing I'll point out, we had this discussion on the April 7th meeting about the one business on Colorado. We've dug further into their permit history. They did apply for and receive both their building permit and their trade permits prior to the date that the ordinance was even introduced, much less adopted. And they are not, because the owner is CMT certified, they're not required to have a massage establishment permit. And they had applied for their business registration certificate prior to also prior to the effective date of the ordinance, and the only thing that's holding that up is they have to actually finish their TIs to get that approved. So our recommendation would be to introduce the ordinance as modified. It has a modification to exempt anybody that's received a permit prior to the effective date, and so that would be our recommendation. We have three action items for you. One is a motion to just accept this report. The government code on urgency ordinances requires the council to hear a report, so that's what you're doing tonight. So we ask that you accept it. The second ordinance is the urgency ordinance for the moratorium. And the third item is an ordinance for introduction, amending, and they're just cleanup changes to our massage establishment permit process. We're just asking you to adopt those as well. So that needs to be introduced as well.
So so the changes that anybody who's already applied for a permit would be able to get one.
Anyone's applied and received a permit.
And received.
So
Which is only one entity.
Is it just that one?
As far as we know, it's just the one. We've got no other information.
One that they were here a couple of weeks ago.
Correct.
I'll introduce both ordinances.
I don't know if you had any public cards, Mr. Mayor.
I don't have any speaker cards for this item.
Okay,
so those were the ordinances at 9A3.
2 and 3, 9A 2 and 3.
2 and 3.
And then you just need to make a motion to accept the report.
I'll move the item.
Is there a second? Roll call, please.
Council members Devine?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Nanyan?
Yes.
Yes. Close the public hearing. Next item, please.
Next item is oral communications. Discussion of items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Council may question or respond to a speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. City manager may for the appropriate department for investigation and report.
First speaker is Jolene Taylor. Followed by Nick Franklin.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Jolene Taylor, and I'm the president of Pelincone Homeowners Association. Last December, Metro hosted 2 community meetings, one in Atwater Village and the other in Glendale. The purpose of the meetings was to present alternatives for the closure of the Doran Street crossing and the Broadway Brazil crossing. Unfortunately, Metro seems confident the high-speed rail is in Glendale's future and all at-grade crossings should be made above grade. At the time of the meeting, Broadway Brazil had just reopened approximately 3 months earlier after being closed for a year and a half to conduct safety upgrades that cost over $8 million. Excuse me. $1.8 million of which was paid by Glendale. In addition, over $10 million was spent recently to upgrade the crossings at Grandview and Sonora. The main concern of our association are alternatives 2 and 3, which call for adding on to the current Fairmont flyover to gain access to the Atwater area once Doran is closed. I've given you a copy of the rendering. With these alternatives, Los Angeles commercial traffic will be driving on a Glendale residential street. Imagine 18-wheelers, trucks carrying propane, and other commercial vehicles traveling day and night on Fairmont. Just to put it in perspective, vehicles and trucks traveling eastbound on the 134 freeway would take the San Fernando Road exit, turn left on Doran, turn left on Concord, and left on Fairmont directly in front of homes to access the flyover. Currently, vehicles and trucks traveling eastbound on the 134 exit San Fernando Road, turn right on Doran, and travel straight into the Atwater Village area. At the Atwater Village meeting, Metro representatives stated trucks would not use the Fairmont flyover, but would rather be directed to the other crossing. The question was raised as how this would be handled, and their answer was signage. Attendees of the meeting laughed and said truck drivers and everyone else will travel wherever the easiest access is. Also at the meeting, a Glendale business owner stated if alternative 1 or 2 is chosen and the new Sperry above-grade crossing is built to replace Broadway in Brazil, he would lose his 3 buildings with 74 employees. All in all, representatives stated Glendale would lose 7 parcels and Los Angeles would lose 2 full parcels and part of another. I'm the first to say that I have been vocal in my stance against on closing Doran due to safety issues and its close proximity to the propane center. However, after viewing all 3 alternatives, it seems clear Doran and Broadway Brazil should remain open until a more feasible option is presented. Unfortunately, the alternatives presented seem to affect Glendale residents and businesses significantly more than Los Angeles, and for that reason we ask Council to protect Glendale and reject all 3 alternatives. In conclusion, I would like to thank Council members Devine, Friedman, and Sinanian for taking the time to meet with us and allowing us to show you firsthand how detrimental these alternatives are for our neighborhood. It is my understanding Metro will present Council the 3 alternatives and perhaps their recommendation next Tuesday. I would like to formally invite Mayor Najarian and Council Member Garpetian to meet with us before then, excuse me, so we may also show you firsthand our concerns about all of the alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Scarpetta.
I received your email and also I responded to it. What I wanted to do is get some more information before I meet you guys so I would know what I'm talking about, but I would be more than happy to meet with you guys sometime this week.
I thought I had a pretty good working relationship with Pelanconi. I guess not. But anyway, I think that the best plan is the one that goes across the LA River, actually. But that's something that the EIR consultant put not as the first choice. So we'll see how that turns out. Nick Franklin.
Yes, sir. How are you, sir?
Fine, sir. Nice to see you.
Okay, good to see you as well. Before I make my reason for coming, I frequent the International House of Pancakes, and when you come off of the 134 freeway, there is no crosswalk for the people to go across, or at least it's very faded crosswalk. And there's no curb cut for a wheelchair person to get up on to the sidewalk. So you might want to look into that.
Is that on the west side of Glendale Boulevard you're talking about, going across?
I'm not good with.
Yeah, I think it is. We'll take a look.
But it's just as you come off of the freeway. It's right there by the Presbyterian Church.
Okay, that's the east side then. Okay.
Something needs to be done when it's possible. My next comment is in respect to my wish to have shelters for people who are waiting for the bus, and my comment made it into the news press. So they are hoping that something can be done for people that sit at the bus stops to have shelters. And I know we live in a very big city, and there's a lot to be done. But currently, not in every space, but in some of the other spaces where the people have to sit are very low. The benches are very low, and there's no back support for a person sitting on a low bench. And it makes it really hard for older people to stand up because there's no back support and there's nothing for them to hold on to when they're trying to get up again. We need to change that, and we need shelters for people that are sitting in the rain. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin.
So, Mayor, Council Member Devine, We may have some concrete seats left over, but as we go through the projects, we're replacing them with metal seats. Right.
Are they low? Are they still low, the metal seats?
They meet the ADA requirements, the guidelines that we have to follow, all the new ones.
Okay, and then that may be the case, but going forward basis, we should, just because they meet the minimum requirement doesn't mean we should strive for more comfortable seats. So just something to make a note of.
Are they metal with no sunshade?
At most, I can't say at most, but again, with every project that we go through the street, we make sure that if there is space in order to meet ADA accessibility.
I just hope we're not putting metal in the sun.
No. If there is no bus stop covers, they won't have seats either.
Fry an egg on it.
Yeah, you could fry an egg in the summer.
Flapjacks. We'll train you to make those pancakes, Mr. Chair. Yes, Mr. Pine.
When you talk about protection, are they talking about like 3 walls, or they just mean, because I've seen a lot of them with like rooftops, I mean, where there is protection. Are they talking about all the way around?
I don't believe so. I think they're requesting a rooftop cover, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the ones
All
that they
right.
don't have any seats, they don't have any covers
Oh, do you
either.
want-
So.
Can I say something?
You know what, we will,
Well,
because we have a lot of questions, after the meeting, we'll get your exact locations, the IHOP issue, and the bus stop issue, so we can get it directly to our Public Works Director. Yes, I do. Only 3 more minutes, or 5 more minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a quick question for Mr. Golanian. Do we have in our budget, anytime in the near future, purchase of these shelters, bus shelters? Are we?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Sinanian, yes, we do have budgeted item for purchase of bus shelters and seats as necessary.
And before that happens, is that going to come to council? I mean, in terms of not just here, consent item, allocate this much money, or are we going to see the designs? Because I'll tell you honestly, last year when we were at the Recon conference, we saw a lot of bus shelters. So there are a lot of vendors out there that are providing more and more cutting-edge, comfortable, technologically smart. Everything's solar nowadays. Bus shelters. So that's something I think we should have a word in, especially since some of our shelters, the residents are talking about mere covers at this point.
We'll make a point of highlighting those designs as the projects come before you.
Very well, thank you.
But don't sole source it. We want an RFP.
Duly noted.
You know that already. Yes, Mr. Garbettian.
Do we own every bus stop in the city, or some of these owned by? Because we were talking about it was mentioned to me that we don't own every bus stop in the city. Is that correct?
Councilmember Garpetian, the bus shelters, some of our bus shelters are owned and operated by I shouldn't say owned, but they're operated and maintained by a private entity that uses it for advertising. We lease them to the company, and in turn they use it for advertising.
Right, but do we have the control of putting a shade on top of it, or replacing the seats, or what have you?
As a matter of fact, this vendor provides those standard bus shelters at locations that we lease to them.
So,
I'm sorry, but other locations, like on Brand Boulevard, we have customized bus shelters, and Glen Oaks Boulevard that are different.
So the answer is yes, we own every one of them, but we lease some of them now.
Yeah, the city has the ownership of all the bus stops within the right-of-way.
And the lease retains a degree of control over these bus shelters to the city, right? The city retains control. Okay. We should exercise that control.
Would you be opposed to giving us a little bit broader report on this? Because it looks like we have a lot of questions.
Absolutely.
Everybody okay with that? I mean,
Absolutely. That would be great.
With pictures.
How many are there? The styles? To what extent can council dictate the design and the funding mechanisms? That might be a good discussion. Okay, thank you. Last speaker is Mike Mohill.
Good evening, Mayor Najarian and council members. My name is Mike Mohill. Chapter 4, final chapter, Councilman Dave Weaver legacy. It was good to see former Councilman Dave Weaver decide to seek a sixth term on council where the voters had an opportunity to vote him out of office. Reporter Ted Ayala from CV Weekly said it best, quote, Mr. Weaver was bruisingly defeated, end of quote. The arrogant bully councilman had to be shown the door by the taxpayers. In 1997, when Mr. Weaver was elected, we had over $660 million in reserves. At last week's budget session, our city manager, Ochoa, stated we were down to $59 million in reserves. In 1997, when Mr. Weaver was elected, Glendale Water and Power, GWP, had over $255 million. About 2 years later, city manager Ochoa stated in 2005 we had about $153 million in GWP, and today we have less than $20 million only in the water account side of GWP. Today, the electrical side of GWP has practically $0. A whopping $836 million has been transferred from the city reserve account and GWP into the pockets of our CalPERS union workforce. That's the CalPERS union workforce. In 1997, when Mr. Weaver was elected, city employees' pension liability of the corrupt pension fund, CalPERS, was less than $100 million. Today, the city's taxpayers, if they want to leave CalPERS, it would cost the taxpayers over $1.4 billion. In 1997, when Mr. Weaver was elected, less than 33% of the general fund paid for fire and police salaries and benefits. According to Mr. Weaver, 18 years ago, 18 years later, it has grown to a whopping 80% and is still growing today. In 1997, when Mr. Weaver was elected, our city employees' post-employment health insurance benefits were less than $50 million. Today is over $222 million and still growing. Just 5 years ago, it was $104 million. In just a matter of 5 years, this luxurious health benefit has more than doubled. The employee post-employment health insurance benefit is given to city union employees who retire at the ripe old age of 50 or 55 and terminate at age 65 when their Medicare kicks in. This is a government contract between the city and the unions, which the city can immediately terminate upon renewal and does not have to be renewed. We can no longer afford this luxury. Under Mr. Weaver's watch, and since Mayor Najarian's election in 2005 and Councilman Freeman's election in 2009, they have all approved and drastically increased our electric and our water rates beyond the cost of delivery in violation of the city's charter, Proposition 218 and Proposition 26. Mr. Weaver, Mr. Najarian, and Mrs. Friedman have all drastically increased fees and created new fees, such as the design review fee that has gone from $600 to a whopping $7,000 per application. With the humiliating defeat of Councilman Weaver, is it any wonder both Mayor Najarian and Councilman Freeman are seeking higher office? They want to walk away from the damages they have created, along with their disgraced colleague, former Mayor Dave Weaver. With a record such as Mr. Weaver and Mayor Najarian, Councilman Freeman seeking higher offices, the need for term limits is now. There has been no difference between how Mr. Weaver has handled the taxpayers' money and the way Freeman and Najarian have. Since Councilman Najarian campaigned for term limits, it would be wonderful if he placed on the agenda term limits for the next general election, he would have the support of council members Devine and Sinyanyan. Thank you.
Thank you. There is one last speaker, Alicia Kindval, maybe?
Yes, correct.
Close?
Thank you. Good work. Everyone pronounces it wrong. Would like to give you some photos I printed out for you.
Sure.
Hello, council members and mayor. My name is Alicia Kimball, and I'm from the beautiful state of Minnesota. So many people have asked me over the years that I finally gave up and got it tattooed on my hand. I have been a Glendale citizen for 3 years. I'm here to bring awareness to an issue that has been happening in Glendale. I recently called the Glendale police to check in on an incident report I filed with Glendale and downtown LAPD. I met them outside of a Glendale establishment and informed them of the issue. I asked to talk to them outside. I explained to them that I had complaints about the LAPD. They retrieved my belongings without asking or permission. As soon as the officer returned with my belongings, another stated that I was under arrest. They started to manhandle me, and I yelled for help. A man saw me, and I begged him for help. He kept walking. They threw my face against a concrete wall and proceeded to aggressively drag me across Pacific Avenue by my hands. I screamed for help, and they wouldn't allow my friends to come talk or console me. I was thrown into a cop car face first, and I started to cry. And I said, "Sir, why didn't you simply ask me to walk?" His face looked like a mix of shock and horror. I was not under the influence of drugs or alcohol. However, they falsely accused me of doing so. They also, however, used this as probable cause. I thought they were going to kill me because I hadn't done anything wrong, and I came to them for help. I was a mix of shock, fear, and rage. I was taken to the Glendale Police Department against my will. They illegally searched my bag, finding nothing but snacks and makeup. As soon as I saw a female officer, a wave of relief rushed over me. How sad. I was placed in a room with nothing but a toilet and a sink and left for hours. Afraid, everyone treated me like a criminal and tried to get me to admit to being on drugs and alcohol. I obviously denied this lie. The officer told me that the arresting officer begged to differ. I begged for a lawyer, a phone call, and to be let go because I was innocent. Finally, exhausted from crying and begging for hours, I said, "Kill me or let me go." I was taken to fingerprinting and sure that this was where I was going to die because why else would they treat and arrest an innocent woman? I started sobbing and told the officer I was afraid, and I explained why. And in that moment, after hours of fear and torment, someone finally believed me. The officer gave me a pair of shoes because I was freezing and barefoot. He took my fingerprints and my picture and told me my bail was $25. To my knowledge, that bail does not exist. I had $22.40 in my purse. $22.40. I owed $2.60. I was released after several agonizing hours without paying. However, I did not receive the majority of my belongings, including my car keys, apartment keys, cell phone, and credit card. I want to bring this injustice to the community's attention. The police are overstepping their bounds. Here we have another case of police brutality, only this time it's an innocent woman. I came to them for help and received brutal, unjust treatment. I'm afraid to leave my home and in fear to speak out. But this needs to be heard by the Glendale community. This is more than being a modern-day feminist. It's more than women's rights. It's about basic human rights. The police are not protecting and serving. They are overstepping their bounds. They think they're above the law. I asked a Glendale officer, I said, "Sir, I thought you were here to protect and serve." And he said, "That is not our motto in Glendale." So please tell me, Mr. Mayor, what is it?
I can answer you as soon as you're done.
I'm finished.
Thank you. I'm concerned at all your remarks. However, more important is that this may be an ongoing. Is this an ongoing prosecution? Because if it is, I would.
It's either an ongoing matter or it would be based on the allegations that are made. So we'll certainly get the contact information and follow up in the way we can.
Right. So I have to very much restrict my remarks in public. However, if there are any specific questions you have, we do have a representative of the police department who may answer them. You have some property issues they may be able to help you with.
I think at this point it's a little bit more than a property issue.
Okay, well that does concern me, but I am restricted as to what I can say in an open session on that. But thank you for coming, and I hope that the problem is resolved shortly.
Thank you for listening.
Are there any other comments from staff or council? Is there a motion? Do we have a new business?
No, sir, we do not.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned.